Hello there and welcome back, guys. Should Sidney Crosby leave the Pittsburgh Penguins? This has been the question, this has been the topic that has been discussed in the media, American and also Canadian, in these past couple of days. And the reason is quite simple. Sidney Crosby is on his last year expiring contract, 12-year contract worth of over 104 million with an average annual value of 8.7 million that he signed all the way back in time, back in 2012. So now the question is, if Sidney Crosby could potentially leave the Pittsburgh Penguins, is it even a question, guys? Well, we thought that probably Steven Stamkos would never leave Tampa Bay Lightning, but it happened. He left the Tampa Bay Lightning. They weren't able to come to terms with the general manager, Julien Brisebois, and to eventually, settle on some number. Tampa Bay Lightning decided to go for Jay Gensel. So could something similar happen to captain of the Pittsburgh Penguins, Sidney Crosby? Now, it's quite obvious, I would say, that surely the management of the Pittsburgh Penguins and the general manager Kyle Dubas will not want to lose Sidney Crosby. It's all about what really Sidney Crosby wants, and if he wants out of Pittsburgh. I would say probably not. I still cannot imagine Sidney Crosby not wearing a Pittsburgh Penguins uniform. Obviously, as we all know, he has been mentored by Mario Lemieux. Mario Lemieux has been all-time Pittsburgh Penguin. He didn't leave Pittsburgh Penguins. He has been playing for the Penguins all his career, and I anticipate very much the same story for Sidney Crosby. But still, with Steven Stamkos leaving Tampa Bay Lightning this summer, with Jonathan Marchessault, one of the original misfits, leaving Vegas Golden Knights, you never know what will happen with Sidney Crosby, because we are seeing more and more that the general managers of the team are really not looking that much on the loyalty and more on the long-term success of their teams. Again, I have seen already some destinations for Sidney Crosby, like maybe he will go to New York, to Broadway, to play for the Rangers, or maybe he will go to Colorado to play for Avalanche alongside his good old friend from Nova Scotia, Nathan MacKinnon. Anything can happen. But right now, Sidney Crosby, he has had another great season for Pittsburgh Penguins. He had 42 goals and also 94 points. So great season for Sidney Crosby. He has his age, but the Pittsburgh Penguins, they obviously didn't make the playoffs this past season, and that's the main problem for Sidney Crosby, right? As we all know, Sidney Crosby wants to be competitive, and these Pittsburgh Penguins team, they didn't make the playoffs this past year. They weren't far off, although, because Washington Capitals, they were the last team to make the playoffs from the Eastern Conference. They had 91 points, and Pittsburgh Penguins was only 3 points back. They had 88, so they really weren't far off the playoffs, but they eventually weren't able to make it all the way to the playoffs. And the question is if the Pittsburgh Penguins are competitive. And currently, I would say, are they a playoff contender? I think we can pretty much all agree that they are a playoff contender, but definitely they are not Stanley Cup contender. They are not a team that you will choose to win Stanley Cup. I think they just don't have enough firepower to win the Stanley Cup right now. Obviously, they still have Sidney Crosby, they still have Evgeny Malkin, they still have on, defense Erik Karlsson and some good pieces there, but they are not the team that you will choose to win the Stanley Cup. They could bounce back eventually, they could go back to the playoffs, but even that would be very difficult for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, Penguins have not been overly active on the free agent market. I have seen a lot of criticism on the general manager of Pittsburgh Penguins, Kyle Dubas, that he's not doing enough to keep Sidney Crosby in Pittsburgh. Now, that could be true, could not. Again, it's a question, what could he done more? Probably could have. Surely he should have tried to do more, but he did make some moves. They have brought in Matt Grzelcyk. They have signed also Anthony Beauvillier, which I think is a pretty good value considering his cap hit. They have also brought in Kevin Hayes from the St. Louis Blues, the defenseman Sebastian Aho, and Blake Lizotte as well. So they have made some moves, some roster moves, but really no big changes there. Like, they are not like absolutely star power, you know, that you would think would absolutely change the outlook of the team. You still wouldn't choose Pittsburgh to be a true Stanley Cup contender. So that's why the people are discussing. Obviously, Sidney Crosby right now, he's eligible to sign an extension with the Penguins, but he still hasn't signed it, obviously, and the question is when he will choose to sign an extension with the Pittsburgh Penguins, and if he will sign an extension, or if he will try to test the free agent market, or eventually if Pittsburgh will trade him. I think they can definitely get a great value back for Sidney Crosby from Colorado or from New York Rangers or other teams. But yeah, that's still music of the future. You know, we don't know what will happen, but definitely it's an interesting and an intriguing situation in Pennsylvania, in Pittsburgh, for Sidney Crosby. As I have been saying, he is on the last year of his 12-year monster contract with an average annual value of $8.7 million. That contract will come to an end at the end of the season 2024-2025. So Sidney Crosby is eligible to sign an extension. Will he sign an extension? That's the big question. The Pittsburgh Penguins, in my opinion, not a Stanley Cup contender. They will not win the Stanley Cup with their current roster. Again, the question is, will Sid prioritize loyalty, and will he stay a lifelong Penguin? I am inclined to say yes. I think he will stay a lifelong Penguin. I think he will stay in Pittsburgh his whole career. But again, there are a lot of people who are saying he may be on the move. But it's still just a very hypothetical question. I have gone through some reasons why some people believe that he may choose to go out of Pittsburgh, but I still believe he will stay in Pittsburgh. He will sign an extension. We don't know when, but I think he will eventually sign an extension with the Penguins, even though he probably will not win with this team his next Stanley Cup. But he already won 3 Stanley Cups, and that's quite a lot for Sidney Crosby. And definitely, if he will choose to stay in Pittsburgh, he will be an absolute legend. He will have a statue, you know, before their stadium. And yeah, I think he will stay lifelong Penguin. But it's an interesting question to talk about, guys. Please tell me your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, what do you think, guys? Will Sidney Crosby stay a lifelong Penguin, or will he try to move somewhere else? Will he sign an extension or not? Tell me your thoughts, guys. What do you think about the current situation in Pittsburgh? And do you think they have a team that can win potentially a Stanley Cup? Again, guys, thank you very much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. Have a great day, and please subscribe if you haven't already, guys, as we're trying to build some more subscribers in this channel. I would really appreciate that, guys, and see you in the future videos very soon. Bye, guys.